She is a retired educator. Oh,
you're good.
Okay, so I'll start over. So let's see. Got it. Okay, so I'm honored to introduce Kitty Wallace from the Coalition of Community Gardens. I've known her for quite some time as a community organizer and very active with nutrition and gardening. So a little bit about her is she is a retired educator. She's a co-founder of Tampa Heights Community Garden, co-founder of the Coalition of Community Gardens, and she loves to play in the dirt. So without further ado, here is Kitty Wallace.
Thank you, Lisa. So we formed this coalition just because we were observing other gardens at the time when we started. There were several gardens that started, and after, you know, we saw really about a fail rate of 50% of the gardens that were starting were failing, and we got together with the other gardens in Hillsborough. There were 4 other gardens that had been around for 3 or 4 years, and we decided that that was the working definition of a successful garden. If you had managed to stay alive for 3 or 4 years and keep your membership up and have a good time, then that was called success. And we decided that we had enough confidence in ourselves that we had overcome things and we could share that with other people, and we were willing to share that with other people. So we just informally formed our little group of gardens in Hillsborough, and we started just sharing information across, and people said, well, wait a minute, I want to be on your list. I want to know this and I want to know that. And does anybody have another post hole digger? And I need 4 more chairs. And, so we'd like swap information about who needed what. And our main thing on our forming of our coalition was to be a voice that could support community gardening in our region. So by now we're 5 years later, 6 years later, and we're at 34 community gardens in 4 counties in Manatee, Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough. So people who love to do the gardening that they do love to be connected to the other people who love to do community gardening. And so it's just an opportunity to share information. We've done our sharing formally for the last 3 years, and this coming July will be our 4th annual Grow Gardens conference. So we just have asked a few people around, and I think there's a little promo of the Grow Garden. This is my little kids group. If you retire from education after 35 years and you still look to have opportunities to play with kids, then you get a gold star. So there's my little group of kids on Tuesday afternoons from the Tampa Heights after school program. They have a garden at the Tampa Heights Community Garden, and so we go every Tuesday afternoon and check. Of course, we're just getting back into it now from the pandemic. But do you have the little blurb about the conference, Lisa, or somebody? Can I put up the blurb? No, that's right.
Sorry, no, Kitty, no, we don't have that blurb.
Okay, all right. Anyway, so July 24th, it'll be virtual again. Our first 2 conferences were in person, and we were able to tour. We were on the host sites for the first conference, the Tampa Heights Community Garden, and for the second conference, it was the University Area Harvest Hope Park Community Garden, so that as part of the conference there was a garden tour, and that's what gardeners love to see, what other gardeners are doing. So unfortunately, because of last year and this year going virtual, we won't have that opportunity, but we will continue to have an annual Grow Gardens conference, and next year I'm sure we'll be somewhere where we can have a garden tour. But there will be the 3 areas that we tend to think are the most important areas is, just the learning about gardening, the learning about the importance of gardening and in the community, the health benefits and the community benefits. And we always like to talk a little bit about the policy aspect, because that's what drives success, and that's what also is a barrier to success at some time. So when we're talking about the success of community gardens, we want to take a look at the policy issues. My hat is off to Pinellas County. You have in your area moved far into the policy pieces that support community gardening and urban agriculture. We are still just basically, we're not even taking steps. I mean, we think we're taking steps, but I think we will be moving in that direction, because we have some good signs on the horizon in our side of the bay. But we just got our first sustainability person in the city of Tampa, so you know that he's had a lot to catch up on in his first year. So that's about our conference, and I hope that you can get that information. I think I've sent something out. I'm going to send an adjusted, Lisa, I'm going to send an adjusted promotional piece about that, about the garden conference, so that it can be forwarded to everyone. We are asking for tickets of $12, and that will fund some newly formed gardens, to give some financial support to some newly forming gardens. So, any questions?
Hey, I've got a question for you, Kitty. Have you had any problems with policies when trying to start a garden? Like, what's a biggest kind of issue that you might have had?
Well, you know, that's an interesting question. We haven't run into any problems. I can't think of a problem. The problems in starting a garden are usually around people just finding the piece of land that they can garden on. And that is what, and I have to say, fortunately, it's what takes them the time to slow down and form their community. Because if they just found a piece of land and they just all ran in there and started gardening after 2 meetings, you know, they wouldn't have formed enough of the strength of the people that are going to be gardening. It takes a while, mostly if you have to resolve some issues like where's the water, who's paying for that, you know, all those things have to be resolved. The policy pieces have not, and mostly because in Hillsborough County, there is no policy. So that's been an easy thing from the point of view of folks that are forming their community garden in the unincorporated area. The city of Temple Terrace does have a policy. Plant City has a policy. Tampa does not. Tampa does have an ordinance. I don't know what to do with this when somebody calls it. I'm on a Zoom. Okay. But it probably is something that we're going to need to address, because apparently the people in government like to have ordinances and things. So they started talking about doing that for Hillsborough County.
I only asked because in talking to some people preparing for this, I know there's a few issues with like homeowners associations thinking that it's a blight to even have a community garden. So a lot of times they can't even get past their own personal board. Looking into it more, there's really nothing in Pinellas County that says that homeowners associations are allowed to do that. They can dictate the size and breadth of things, but they can't say whether you're allowed to have one or not.
That's interesting, right? Well, when the state of Florida passed that front yard gardening law 2-3 years ago, and saying people can have gardens in their front yard in the state of Florida, they exempted homeowners associations from that law. So I've in our discussions, we haven't really had anyone want to start a community garden inside a homeowners association. And so we haven't run smack into that yet.
Excellent. All right, I got a question here from the chat from Dirk, and it says, why not offer video tours for virtual venues now and even in the future?
Yes, I think that's very smart. We need to do that.
You hear that? We need to do it, Dirk. Anybody else who's listening, who's in the video, let's make this happen. All right, do I have any other questions?
When you figure out how to do that and you have the technology, worked out the bugs in your technology of doing the video tours, let me know, because I'm all about jumping on. Somebody's already, cleared the way. Let me just jump in there, because I think that would be a great thing to have on like our website, that all the gardens would have a garden tour. That would be so fun.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So listen out there, all you video savvy people. We need some garden tour videos. Any other questions? Feel free to type it in the chat here real quick. Any other thoughts? Going once, going twice. All right, we're gonna pass the hat. Thank you, Kitty. Feel free to hang around, and if anybody else has any other questions, just type them in the chat. And if Kitty disappears, don't worry, we'll make sure we get your question answered either way. So we can always come up with things a little bit later. All right. So now coming up next is going to be Robin Clemmons. Welcome. She's one of our board members here at SUAC. She's an organic farmer at Daystar Life Centers. She manages the garden and volunteer efforts.
That's a sneak. I didn't give you that slide.
You didn't? No, I find stuff, A former garden educator and coordinator for the Foundation for Sustainable Families. She's the reason we have Instagram, so come check us out on SUAC St. Petersburg Instagram. And here she is. I found this sneaky picture that you posted on Facebook. If you didn't want people to find it, I mean, maybe you got to go somewhere.
Thank you.
All right. And then we'll let you take it away from...
So can we have the Daystar song the next, or do you
want the next one? We're tired of this
photo?
photo?
We don't want to talk. No, we're tired of that one.
Remember, it's next slide, please.
Next slide, please. Okay, so the garden at Daystar Life Center is a nonprofit in South St. Pete. It's been in St. Pete for 35 years, but this is a new location. They got this fabulous donation 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, it looked like the left-hand slide, and this is what it looks like now. And I guess according to Kitty's definition, we're not there yet because it's only 2 years old, but we're getting there. So, and the garden, it's a community, it's a different type of community garden because we have volunteers who help us, but the purpose of this garden is that Daystar is a food pantry. And so we are growing the vegetables specifically to give them to people who come to the food pantry for food assistance. I do have volunteers, and we also encourage clients, like people who live in this neighborhood, to come and help also, so they can learn and be able to also grow themselves in their own yard, right? Because the location is right in the middle of a food desert on purpose so that it's easily accessible. And so part of the growing is to show people what they could do themselves right in that same neighborhood. Like we're doing it right there, so can they. But it's also to give them the opportunity to try different vegetables, to see them growing, to eat them. Because if you are using food stamps or have a just limited income, you're not going to buy organic vegetables, or you're not going to buy a vegetable that you've never tried before because you have limited resources. So the purpose is really to just give people who wouldn't otherwise have the means or opportunity a chance to try everything. And then we also give cooking classes, or we did before COVID. We were starting to have, there's a beautiful demonstration kitchen in the building. And we were starting to have classes to teach people how to cook the food, or also just to cook it and let people taste it. So you're not going to buy Swiss chard if someone tells you, oh, it's really good, but if we could make something with it and then let people try it, then you can sell people on good, healthy food. So, and it's just great. People see things growing that they eat all the time, and they're like, I never knew that's what okra looked like when it was growing. So it's been really nice in that sense. And I just want, Daystar serves, they're not just a food pantry, but 90% of the clients who come to Daystar live at or below the poverty line, and only 29% of their clients are homeless. So this idea, there's a false notion that a lot of people have that people that go to food pantries that we're serving the homeless. And we are serving the homeless, but there are 70% of the clients live somewhere, have jobs. They are just living on minimum wage jobs, or they might be living on disability, they might be elderly, so it's just not the population that's always perceived. It's lots of people, and especially during COVID, even more people came for food assistance who have jobs, but it's hard to make it. So, oh, next slide, please, Amber. Okay, so this is kind of what it looks like now that because of COVID, we can't go in the building still. They're not letting clients back in the building, which has kind of been a blessing in disguise because people wait outside for their turn and they stand around the garden while they're waiting. And so we interact a lot more, have conversations, talking about what different foods are or how do you cook them, and a lot of times it's people in line telling me things, which is fantastic because then I've been able to start building the community that we need, that Kitty was talking about. Like, I can't just show up in this neighborhood and tell everyone this is what you should grow. They tell me like, oh, where's your collards? Or, where's your mustards? I see collards. Why aren't you growing mustards? Or my grandma always did this, or this is how they cooked kalaloo. Or, so we've changed what we're growing based on the people interacting and telling me what they wish they had. And, I had my ideas like, oh, I'll, bring them in with collard greens because everyone knows collard greens and likes them. And then I'll convince them that like, oh, if you like collard greens, then maybe now you'll try kale because it's similar and you can cook it in a similar way, but it's a little more healthy or whatever. But at the same time, like, I was growing different colored carrots, because they're all fancy and cool. So let's do like 5 colored carrots. And they're just like, where's the carrots? Can you just grow orange carrots? So it's like, I had to sort of also learn from like the clientele telling me like, just, where's just the carrots? So a lesson for me, not to be too fancy. So the point of the pantry model is a choice pantry model. And it was set up that way before COVID, where we would put all the food on tables like this. Everything we harvested, we would harvest once a week and bring everything, set it out with signs and labels and recipe cards, and just let people choose what they wanted to try or what they already knew they liked. And now we have to package everything and serve it outside. So it's a little different, but it's still a choice. So we're not able to, like, I hate that we have to put it all in plastic bags because nobody can touch other people's stuff now. So we can't make it like a fresh farmer's market, but it's still working. So we're still getting there. Next slide, please, Amber. These are just some examples of, we've tried to grow all different things. And we've got a total of, in 2 years, we've grown 65 different fruits, vegetables, and herbs. And not all at the same time. So obviously always changing for the season, trying different things, and not large amounts of each thing either. I mean, I want to say we have 650 square feet. So we're constantly changing. And, sometimes you might think, oh, I only got, there you go. We got 2 watermelons from that watermelon crop. And you start to think, oh, it's not enough, or I need to have this whole giant crop of something. And you don't. We could have 1 eggplant, and there's someone who wants to try it and they only need 1. Or someone wants to try, okra, they don't need 20. So you don't have to have massive amounts of something for it to be useful, or for it to be great, or for it to be appreciated by someone who, there's a lot of people who live alone and they're cooking for 1 and they're perfectly happy that we've got enough for, for 1 serving, and that's cool. So you can try lots of different things. So we have had some other community gardens in the St. Pete area, like Palmetto Park Community Garden. There's Ray Wunderlich has the Wonder Farms, and then there's Emmanuel Rue at the 15th Street Farm. All three of those gardens, they bring us extra of what they grow, and we also give it out in the pantry. And Tom Landcraft, he's the manager at Palmetto Park. He hesitant at first. He's like, oh, I only have, 4 of these or 1 of that. And we just told him it's great. It doesn't matter. It can be a small amount. And so we've also had some neighbors also that, like, they have a mango tree or they're growing their own collards in their front yard and they have too many for themselves. So we've reached out to some of those people also, and it makes them feel good that, like, oh, I can grow different stuff in my yard that I can't eat it all, but I can share it with you. So I think we're expanding to kind of like a community garden in a different sort of way. So next slide, please. Okay, and so these are, Amber asked me to show you some of our more successful things that we're trying. So, like, we're right on the interstate. Okay, we can stay there. We're right along, the interstate is right along there, and there's the 200 feet of black wrought iron fence, and not wrought iron, black chain link fence. So we have started a fruit forest, and so we now have about, I lost count, 20 to 30 different fruit trees. And something like that you can do early on because it doesn't take a lot of maintenance. You don't have to have volunteers to come tend that like you would a crop that you need to harvest and keep the bugs away. But you can get quick results for some of those trees, like the papayas produced in the first year. The pineapples took a long time. They took 2 years. But mangoes, we got 2 mangoes in the first year off of 1 tree. But that's something that you might want to put in anywhere in your yard if you've got a little extra space or a fence. And so the black beans that are also in this picture, those are Puerto Rican black beans. They have just taken over another fence. And we have 6 plants there. And that was 6 seeds. Actually, they were seedlings that we got from Little Tree, from Rachel and Carrie. And they have completely taken over the fence. And they're in the heat of the summer and they're just going crazy and over and over and over again. We have tons of these beans. But you could put that on a fence on your property line, on your garage, somewhere that you don't think is pretty, part of your yard, and it can be gorgeous. And you need a fence or something, a trellis, something to hold the beans. And then also the fruit trees can fill an empty space like that you don't think, is usable. But also the trees, like it's going to could take 5 years before we get avocados and mangoes from all these trees. But that way it's something you should put in early on. So, like it's going to take a while till you get them, till you get the fruit. But it doesn't take maintenance and time to take care of them. You can just like plant them and leave them. And now we'll work on our raised beds and the vegetables. And those are pretty much just, we take care of them here and there. Next slide, please. So these are just some tips of the way that we're growing, and all these things. Our garden is really kind of like a yard. I mean, just a bigger version of what you could do in your backyard, front yard, side yard. You could have one of these raised beds, could be enough for a family to have in their front yard. So these are things that we're trying to do because we're using regenerative organic practices, and we're learning constantly as we do it. Basically, interplanting is where you put, instead of like neat, perfect rows of just collards in one bed and just kale in another bed, like every single inch of my bed is covered with a plant. If there's dirt showing, we're putting something in there. So whether it's, and you can try to stagger them, and you learn as you go along. You can put taller things with shorter things. You put quick things with long things, or slow things. Like collards will be there for 4 or 5 months. Radishes are going to be in and out in 30 days. So you could put, and they're small, you could put the radishes under your collards and get 2 or 3 batches of radishes while your collards are still just cranking out all year long. There's also plants that are companion planting, which I'm still learning what a lot of those are, or which ones are good for each other, like having tomatoes and basil in the same bed are good for each other, or having sweet alyssum is supposed to deter the bugs that like lettuce. So if you put sweet alyssum right in your bed, or marigolds. But the thing that I realized I was doing wrong, we had extra little planters on the ends of every raised bed, and I had planted flowers in those planters, like marigolds, alyssum, things that were to detract bugs. And really, they should have been in the bed right there with the vegetables. So now, because they need to be close to them, and also like the marigolds release something in their roots that helps the soil. So if it's not in the soil with my plants, it's not really helping them. So we now have all the flowers that are not edible for people, but we have them there for pollinators, or we have them there like 2 reasons: either to attract pollinators or to detract the bugs that are bad for that would eat your vegetables. But so now we just have them all together in the beds, every spare space, and it constantly changes. So our beds are never empty. Like there's never a time that we clear a whole bed and start over. It's as a plant finishes. So, you know, if you pull the beets, immediately put something back in that empty spot, so that there's never a chance for the carbon to be released, or also for it doesn't need it's not that it doesn't need to rest, but it's like your soil does need to rest, but it doesn't really need to. I don't really know how to explain this. Never in nature would you just have blank empty soil for a month resting until it was time to plant something again. So instead of leaving it blank, or even just putting seagrass on it and letting it wait for a month, if you constantly feed your soil with compost and other nutrients, you can continually grow in that soil. You couldn't do that if you don't continually keep feeding it, you know, compost, fertilizer, other natural fertilizers like seagrass, or so we make compost on site from the food scraps in the pantry, and we just constantly, as things change, we add more compost, add more plants. So the collards and the flowers are never in the same place twice, because it's just as soon as something finishes, you put something else in. And I constantly try to keep seedlings started so that when something comes out, there's already you know, a seedling, not just a seed necessarily, so that it's got a quicker turnaround to start going again. And again, this is like, so in this picture, the yellow, a lot of people, that's mustard greens. So we let them bolt and let them go to seed on purpose, not just to gather the seeds to use again, but for the bees, for the pollinators. And it really makes a big difference. Because it's not all about trying to quickly, you know, if I really was in a hurry and trying to plant more and produce more food, I would take the mustards out as soon as they started to bolt and put something else in, so that it's more food for people. But then you're not feeding the pollinators. So we're doing the trying to keep a balance, and that's constantly in flux. Like I don't ever know if I have the right balance, but the effort is there to have food for pollinators and food for people. So, and hopefully that will make our soil healthier, which will then allow us to grow more food without, you know, having to pull everything out before it bolts. And the flowers are so beautiful now. We've noticed, you know, arugula has beautiful flowers, and fennel and dill, mustard greens, they have gorgeous flowers that you never know because people pulled them out before you see them. Next slide, please. Am I taking too long? Okay. Okay, so these are just some ideas of things that everybody can do. You can do this in your yard. It doesn't have to be large scale. So top right is our compost bins. And yes, it looks like one of the downfalls of a food pantry is there is a lot of food waste, because donations come from groceries, and by the time, a lot of times they come from groceries, which is great that they're donating, but by the time it gets there, things are bad when they arrive. So we have a lot of food that can't be given out. So instead of throwing it away, we're making compost. So something good's coming out of it. And then we're using the food scraps to make the compost, which the finished compost is the top right picture. That is what we're feeding our soil, our beds constantly. So as soon as it's ready, it's in the beds. So we're constantly adding, and that's basically our fertilizer. And anyone can do this, but not on, you don't need that much if you don't have, we have 23 beds. You know, if you have 2 beds, you can do this in your backyard. Like with the bins that St. Pete gives out for free. We get seagrass from the beach or also from boat ramps. It's much easier to get it from a boat ramp if you can find a park anywhere near you. That's because it will wash up on the concrete and then there's no sand in it. Just scoop it up. You don't have to rinse it. We use that on top of the beds and it serves as like, it acts like mulch that it holds the moisture in, keeps weeds down. And it also, it's a slow release fertilizer. So it just breaks down and goes right into your beds and it's fantastic. So you could do that all year long too. Coffee grounds. I get coffee grounds in huge amounts because it's more efficient for me and, you know, and you don't need to get this much, but your own coffee grounds from your house or go into your local coffee shop. They're all happy to give them to you. You can mix it in your compost. You can also put it directly in your beds. That's a little controversial. Some people do not like that. It can get too hot. So putting the grounds right in your beds, you might want to not do it on little tiny baby seedlings because it could make the soil too hot or like it can burn the roots. So maybe just not real close to the plants, but sprinkling it is probably fine. And then chip drop is up at the top. And that one is a little bit of a challenge for a household, I guess, because it's free mulch from tree companies. Chip drop is an app, and you just say they have to pay to put the mulch at the landfill, and they would much rather drop it off to you for free. So I don't pay for it, and they don't have to pay to take it to the landfill, and we're diverting it from the landfill, which is a good thing. But you do have to take their entire load, so they won't do a partial drop. So you can have that dropped on your driveway and then call all your neighbors and share. And, you know, it's pretty cool. Like you can use it for landscaping, all kinds of things if you want to start a whole new bed. But I do understand that is pretty large amount. But you can also get mulch from the city. Well, and all the waste sites in the city, you can go pick it up yourself if you have a truck or anything and just shovel it in. But we use compost to make our, we use mulch as the main brown ingredient in our compost. And it breaks down that and the coffee grounds together. Coffee grounds really speeds up the process, makes it hotter. Because I don't really we have trouble with getting leaves and grass much for our compost. So we really rely on mulch. And I just saw that it's chip drop in the chat. It's actually not an app. I'm sorry, it's a website, Chip Drop, and it's a national thing. So anywhere people can do that. Next slide, please. There we go. So this is just one other little thing we started doing this past year. The Pinellas County Schools Extended Transitions Program is run through Gibbs High School, and Gibbs is our neighbor. They're right there. And so we had, I think we had 8 students this year. They're not all in the picture, but they came to Daystar 5 days a week in the mornings, and they were there to learn life skills, job skills, social skills, to become employable. And so one day a week they worked with me and we taught them basically how to be an urban farmer. So they helped me with coffee grounds. They learned from the beginning planting seeds. They harvested all year with me, then learned how to process. So that's on the top photo. They're in the kitchen, our demonstration kitchen, but we went in there to process. Basically, we don't wash anything, but we would wrap it all into bundles and put it in bags. And that's all skills. Like if there was a farmer's market and they could have a job, right? So if we had urban farms as somewhere, like that's my dream, that they would be able to get a job at an urban farm. We should have urban farms where people get paid. So they are learning the skills that they could do that. But now they also have skills that they could work in a pantry. And we also cooked, so they got to learn, a quick little lesson about how to cook things, but it was also just because they became interested, because when kids grow stuff, they want to eat it. So they want to know, what does this taste like? What are these? So we did a bunch of cooking just so they could try the food. And that was really fun. And like Kitty said, I was an educator. I was a teacher also for 20 years. So now anytime that I can get my hands on kids and teach them something, it just sort of happens. So it's good. And then the last slide, my current experiment, and I would love anyone else's input. I have this, so generally, it's a good idea to cover crop in the summer. So this is a way to let your soil rest, basically not grow food for people. So cover cropping is growing the soil. So the plants you're putting in are putting nutrients back in the soil. So it's making the soil healthier. And in Florida, nematodes are just the bane of everyone's existence, and you can't get rid of them organically. They're very hard to get rid of. So sun hemp is a crop that everyone, Bill, Emmanuel, Ray, everybody tells me, grow sun hemp to kill the nematodes. And it's a chemical or something that it's while the sun hemp is alive in your plant, in your beds, its roots are putting something into the soil that kills the nematodes. The other ones are buckwheat, clover, and cowpeas. And those are things that put nitrogen back in the soil, like they're legumes. Buckwheat is not. But I had trouble finding, it's also sometimes called green manure because you chop and drop it. You're gonna cut it down and drop it right on the beds and let it decompose into the beds. And that adds more nutrients back into your soil. It's a kind of, it's like composting, but you're not waiting for it in a compost bin. You just do it right on top of the soil. Well, my challenge is I couldn't find a hot weather cover crop seed mix that had everything I wanted. So I just bought 4 different things and I made my own mix. And so far it's growing pretty nicely. The one on the right is what it looks like today. It's about waist high now. The one in the middle was like the first week. But my challenge is that because we're a food pantry, I don't want to go 3 months without any food to give people. So because none of these crops that we're growing are going to produce food for people. They could be fed to animals, but we don't have any animals. But so I still have okra growing above. So that's the picture on the right. Can hardly tell. There's peanuts that are low and they're like a ground cover plant. But there will actually be peanuts, but not till like September. And then the okra is the tall plant coming above. And I'm hoping that we can have okra to give people while all this other buckwheat and clover just look pretty because they'll have flowers. But my challenge is that the okra has very little okra on it. And last year we had tons of okra. Like I had to pick it twice a day. It grew so fast. So now I'm trying to figure out, is it the nitrogen that I'm putting in the soil? There's too much nitrogen and the okra is not making any okra because there's too much nitrogen. So I don't know. I would love if anyone else has grown okra and a cover crop at the same time, or just know, why does my okra have no okra when last year we have no flowers, just all these leaves and maybe 1 or 2 flowers. So I might have to give up the actually having food to give people this summer and just correct our, feed the soil for the rest of July and August, and then go back to, we'll just have to give people the papayas, I guess. I don't know. But, I don't want to completely deplete the soil so that we don't have the ability to grow in September, which is the main growing season. So if anyone has anything to say about killing nematodes too, I would take any advice about that. And that's it. That's what we're doing. And it's basically just a home garden and just on a little bigger scale. But I mean, because we have 23 raised beds. So each one of them is like a little home garden. So nothing I'm doing is with big scale tools or anything that you would not have. I would be doing the exact same thing in my backyard if I had one. So, just small tools, small amounts of seeds. I'm not ordering giant, except the cover crop that's the largest seed packet I've ever bought. So that's it.
Awesome, Robin. I got a few questions here for you.
Okay.
So how many volunteers do you have that come and go? I mean, what's the age range?
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Yeah, so we do have volunteer days on Wednesday mornings, and I have there's probably about 10 people that are regulars, and they don't come, not all 10 of them come the same day. So usually I have 4 people on a Wednesday. And then I have people that will come and do community service and just come and go. They'll come for a month and do their service and then be finished. But I do have a pretty good core group of 10 people who have steadily been coming for the past year. And they are actually 90% women. I don't know why. I guess because it's Wednesday mornings. So it's people that are retired or former teachers. We have a lot of former teachers, actually. And yeah, the average age is 60 plus. Everyone's older than me. Yeah, and I occasionally have high school kids and middle school kids who will come like for one day, to do a couple hour project, and that's great. And actually the P-Tech kids, they're fantastic, and they were 18 to 21, but I had them for the whole school year, and they're coming back next year, so that'll be great. And they really are a big help.
That's awesome. I know you also have like these special signs that are painted. Where are those from? Like that tell you what.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's another example of community. So my friend Lainey Calby, she connected us with Creative Clay. So we had some of the artist students from Creative Clay came on a field trip and just had a tour of the garden, and then their teachers asked them afterwards. We gave them a list of all the vegetables we were growing and asked them which one did they like or which one did they want to paint a sign of. And so the students from Creative Clay made those signs, which is really cool. And Lainey, and actually Emmanuel gave us the wood from 15th Street. He had it extra. Lainey's husband Felice put the wood together and painted it all white. And then Lainey went and delivered them all to Creative Clay, and all these different artists painted them. So it really was like a whole community effort from different garden groups, all helping to get these lovely painted signs.
Excellent, which helps us all understand what is what.
Exactly.
So I've got a couple questions here from the chat. We Dirk asking about how about some Florida-based vegetables growing in the soil, in the natural soil even? Have you ever tried anything like that?
Yeah, so we have callaloo growing now. We have okra, collards, Suriname spinach, Malabar spinach. Not a lot though, to tell you the truth. We try, okra and collards. And I guess collards are not a Florida native actually, probably, but.
Do you ever try to just grow it in the Florida sand and without any extra compost?
No, not here, no. No, no, we have not. Has anyone else done it just right in the sand? The spot where Daystar was, or where it is now, it was for 10 years. It was a road, then it was derelict. So we don't know what chemicals, what was, there was old concrete, asphalt, whatever. So we didn't want to mess with what was in the soil. So we built the raised beds for that reason, to be out of the soil, whatever was down there. That would be a good thing to be able to do though. Absolutely.
Just saying. How about Seminole pumpkin? You get any of that growing around?
No. It's on my list to try.
Okay. All right. And what's your plan with these cover crops that you've got going on? Are you going to chop and drop them in right into the bed, or what's the plan?
The plan is to chop and drop right into the bed. And I have heard that the sun hemp, I can chop and drop more than once if I hurry up and chop it now before it flowers. And then, I can do 2 or 3 perhaps. But yeah, we do not have chickens because our board of directors think that we should have chickens yet. We're working on them though.
Yes.
So I don't have any animals to feed it to. So yeah, we're gonna try the chop and drop. And I guess, we could put it into our compost too, but I want to try the just drop it right on the beds and see what happens. And that's kind of like, since we have several beds, we can do some chop and drop, and then some I could cut it and put it in the compost bin, and we'll see which ones turns out better, I guess. Ooh, I do have, well, our fruit trees are more sort of Florida native, papaya and mango. And
You need some Simpson
trees.
stopper. Yeah, you need some Simpson stopper in there. There's your Florida.
We don't have any of that. We do have beautyberry. Oh, we have a lot of Florida native wildflowers around the perimeter of the garden. They're not in the beds and they're not edibles, but they're, we've got tropical sage, mistflower, scorpion tail, milkweed, native milkweed, lantana, pigeon peas that we just leave perennial because they're beautiful and food all the time. What else do we have? Porterweed, Joe Pye weed. I mean, yes, we have a lot of Florida native pollinators, wildflowers as the border.
How about any cocoa plums?
No, I have cocoa plums at my house. I should bring it over.
Yeah, that's it.
No, that's a good one to
bring it
add.
over.
That's good. Our fruit forest needs additions, clearly. So I love this. Give me the list of what we should plant and add.
Kunti. I don't know what a kunti is, but apparently is also edible if prepared properly.
Okay, then you can come give us the class on how to prepare it too.
You hear that, Veronica? That's you. That's not me.
I have kuntis in my yard also, but I don't know how to cook them. So
There you
we
go.
need Veronica.
All right, I'm kind of just a lazy gardener. I like to forage. All right, does anybody else have any questions, any thoughts here about Daystar, about community gardens? At the moment, any last thoughts for Kitty as well? We were thinking on it before. All right, cool. We're just gonna kind of go ahead and just look at some of the other community gardens that we have that we haven't mentioned. Ooh. Excellent. So here's our some. Most of these are located in St. Petersburg. So I'm just gonna read through them really quick. And if I miss one, please shout it out in the chat. But the 15th Street Agri-Hood, I'm sure its name has changed again since this list, but Assisted Loving's Community Garden, Bartlett Park, Big Yields, Azalea Communities Garden, Daystar Garden, Dig, which is in the Deuces, Eckerd College Student Garden, Edgemore, Jordan Park, Euclid Heights, Miss Joe's Garden at PTC, Pinellas Technical College, Oakdale Community Garden, Old Northeast, Old Southeast, Palmetto Park, Pioneer Settlement down at what's that place called? It's missing. Oh, it's escaping me. Boyd Hill. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, Boyd Hill. Pioneer Settlement Garden at Boyd Hill. The Police Athletic League may or may not be up. Spear at the YMCA. Sustainable Family Services. Hey, Robin, do you know Sustainable Family Services? USFSP, the Bayboro Food Forest, Woodlawn Community Garden, and Wonder Farms. And these ones below the line are just a few gardens that I'm aware of outside of St. Pete. And, if you know of a few more, throw them out there. But I just spent time at Beacon Food Forest in Clearwater, and it's absolutely wonderful with little plots and the food forest going through there. Dunedin Community Garden, Clearwater Community Gardens, and the Garden of Ridvan, which has an interesting concept of, it's got 20 acres for the Garden of Ridvan, and he has it currently set up into 19 different plots, but I don't know, we're going to try and get him into the permaculture world. We'll see. See if we can get more people as opposed to being so separate, everything more together. So come on, guys, tell me, who did I miss? I can't have gotten all the gardens. Big Bayou Community Garden. Did I say that? No, I got Big Yields. Okay, Big Bayou Community Garden, awesome. Any near Tampa area. You're gonna have to help me out, Tampa side people. I'm not as informed on what's going on the Tampa side, but there are a bunch. There you go, 24 in Tampa. Thank you, Kitty. Spirit Mike. Yes, another great advocate for community gardens right there. So but there's plenty of gardens year round, and there's no policies currently preventing people from making community gardens. It's just a matter of really getting whatever neighborhood you're looking for on the map, finding that piece of land and that support. A lot of these gardens are at churches, Universalist type churches, as well as Christian and other affiliate churches. And they usually have a lot of space and already ripe with the community that's needed to keep community gardens going. Because without that volunteer power, it's hard to keep it going and going and going. Everybody needs to get a little bit of a buy-in. And if you make friends and enjoy what you're doing, more people are definitely going to come around and be a part of that. Let's see. Did I miss anybody else? Yell at me for missing anybody else in the chat. Okay. Nope. Big by you though. No, I missed at least one. All right.
There's quite a few more farms and gardens, but community gardens usually mean that the community is welcome. So yeah, so a lot of them are kind of private.
Excellent. Thank you for that little tidbit back and forth there. So if we missed it, please just let us know, throw it out there. And we love your feedback. If you want to see more about community gardens or interested in other topics, just send us an email at wedigstfeet@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Anytime, any questions, let us know. You can also check us out at our Facebook page. And then, of course, our Instagram, which is SUAC St. Petersburg, down at Instagram as well. And that's the end of my slideshow. Let me go back to the very beginning to remind us of things that are coming up. All right, I wanted to also mention, if you're a St. Pete Time Bank member, please head over to the Time Bank and record your hours. We are partners with the St. Pete Time Bank, and we give you hours for watching us. So it's a wonderful facilitating of exchange, and it grows right in here with this community as well. And we also want you to know that we've been actively pursuing grants for SUAC so we can have more and better presentations and things like our virtual garden tour and such coming up, as well as getting back to giving out scholarships to local people who are interested in learning more about urban agriculture. So that's happening. We've got all our ducks in a row, and we're hopefully going to get some more grants in here coming soon. And then we're also partnering with local businesses and nonprofits to try and get some more events going on. So if you're a business, if you're a nonprofit, if you're interested, that's why we exist, is so we can, bring more community together and get everybody working on the same missions, trying to get more people growing and eating healthy food in the city. That's our big plan in a sustainable and organic, ideally manner.